Reform UK will hold the balance of power at the next general election, according to a major new mega poll of over 5,000 voters, which for the first time has predicted in British politics a three-way tie. And now Nigel Farage is holding the balance of power. In the poll's findings, the Conservatives would win 178 seats, Labour 174 and Reform UK 175. Now that is as tight as Chris Hope's wallet on a Friday night. And that would be a dramatic rise from the 5 that Reform won in 2024. Now, the most likely government outcome of this would point to a Conservative Reform UK coalition. Now, meanwhile, Labour MPs in 98 red wall seats are panicking that Keir Starmer isn't doing enough on immigration to keep the Reform Party at bay, but with many other Labour MPs in favour of freedom of movement, and in fact, some even wanting to give immigrants the right to vote. Is immigration a problem that Labour simply cannot or will not solve? Now, that is a lot to get our teeth into, and I've got two people champing at the bit. I'm joined now by GB News' political editor Chris Hope and political commentator, great friend of the show, Aman Bogal. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Chris, let's start with you. It's always in the script. It's a two-horse race. First past the post keeps that balance of power that way. This poll, however, seems to put a bombshell under that. It could be a three-horse race, and there's so much detail in here. Chris, tell us more.
So a poll out just now, Martin, good to see you again. If 5,700 adults, a mega poll from Electoral Calculus, PLMR, the PR company, MRP poll, they reckon that Tories get 178 seats at the election, Labour 174, and Reform 175.
It's so basically on parity.
It's basically a three-way split. That has never happened before in our politics. It shows the gains that apparently the Reform making in the polls. Just 5 MPs at the moment. A big gainer there, of course, is the Tories. They get 50 more seats. But Labour nearly more than halving their seats, a three-way split. But the percents, Reform 24 points, Labour 23, Tories 23. Big beasts in the Labour movement losing their seats. Wes Streeting to the Tory party, Health Secretary. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper to the Reform. Angela Rayner, Deputy Leader, also to Reform. And finally, Jonathan Reynolds, also to Reform. So big concerns, I think, out there in the Labour movement. It comes against a backdrop of difficult economic news, a halving in the forecast for growth this year from the Bank of England. Better news on interest rates. That's good for homeowners, mortgage holders, but not good on the global economy, making us all feel richer. Right now, Sir Keir Starmer is in the last hour of a 4-hour marathon cabinet meeting somewhere else in central London. We're not being told what's being discussed officially.
The economy.
Well, it should be the economy. Yeah. I think we're told public services and growth is what we're told. The economy's on there he is there. That's not walking into the cabinet meeting. It's somewhere else in London. Again, normally we get a briefing on cabinets. This is an extended one, so we're not getting one. That is also strange, unusual. And also on our Choppers political podcast I present for GB News today, we interviewed Jo White.
Yep.
She's chair of the Red Wall caucus of Labour MPs. They're concerned that the announcements made by Rachel Reeves last week on spending are really giving most of the cash to the south of England, not to the north. Red Wall MPs who are facing reform are nervous. And here's what Jo White had to say to me on the podcast.
Do you want to have a voice in the cabinet?
Oh my God.
Not you personally, just a Red Wall...
Or Red Wall voice.
I have to support you in the cabinet.
No.
A Red Wall voice, I'm more of a northern voice. I mean...
Yes, I do. I most definitely do. If and when there's a reshuffle, yes, I'd be loudly cheering for a strong voice from...
But the budget I felt was quite southern focused, or the announcements, from Rachel Reeves last week, Oxbridge rail line...
she went for the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but she didn't really... I think the north was a bit ignored, I think.
I agree.
You're nodding, yeah.
I agree. And there was a level of anger from my Red Wall colleagues. And my challenge to Rachel is do that speech again in the north, telling our story, because by telling a story, you're actually attracting inward investment and you're attracting new businesses. So come to the north, please, Rachel. You are Leeds MP.
Correct.
Tell our story, and we have a good one, and where we want to invest and where we want to get the new skills. And I'll be clapping loudly from the sidelines.
OK, that's Jo White then. Now, she is the chair of the Red Wall Caucus. They are worried. Labour MPs are worried. I think the Labour Party itself, the leadership, should be worried too, Martin. Look at these polling numbers.
And I think that's well-founded. We had Mike Tapp in Dover in the week. He's one of the Red Wall Caucus. And I said to him, I think the Labour Party's got a huge problem with immigration because half the party doesn't want to cut it down. I think it's the same with the Tory party, with Brexit. Half of them didn't really want to get it done, the wet side of the party, if you like, and never the twain shall meet. How do you keep the Red Wall happy while at the same time keeping Oxford and London happy? It's a difficult...
That's governing for the whole country. Now, we're told by the Treasury sources this lunchtime that the government will govern for all parts, all four corners of the UK. But they look at the spending, look at Oxbridge, the Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton airports being expanded. They wonder why the cash isn't being spread more equally into the north of England. And that's a worry. If you're in power, you can spend money. Why not do it to help Labour see it's a two against reform? OK, well, let's go back to that poll now and bring in my guest, Aman Bogal. Let's get the map up, if we could, of how these votes fall and where the problem is for the Labour Party. Let's get some of those graphics up on screen right now. So what we can see here is that ostensibly the Labour Party has three big headaches. The first one is, as Chris Hope just identified, the Red Wall, the hemorrhaging votes to reform. This is you can see there, if you zoom in, you can see that this is basically this is before and after. So look, the Red Wall, which went from Labour to the Conservatives in the Boris election, went back to Labour, is now going to swing back to reform. You can see in Wales a turquoise takeover of Wales, Labour being all but wiped out in Wales. And look at this, astonishingly, in Scotland, the Labour Party hemorrhaging seats to the SNP. The SNP were all but on their knees, all but finished off, and they're back in the game because ostensibly of the winter fuel allowance. The SNP, of course, reversed that decision with instant popularity results. Aman Bogal, Labour Party are in one heck of a bind.
They are indeed. I mean, Martin, I would argue that this is very much not just a Red Wall revolt, but this is a revolt from the same community that have been left behind for so long, be it in Wales, be it in the north of England, be it in parts of Scotland. The truth is, we saw it in the 2019 election. Boris promised to level up the north, level up Wales, and of course a lot of things happened since, and we didn't get a levelling up. These are people who have been left behind, and over the last 6 months they've been told by the Labour Prime Minister that they are far right for questioning him on things that are damaging this country, that they are not worthy of the investment he's sending into that Oxbridge area, sending into Heathrow. But also, more than that, they're seeing also what's happening across the pond in the United States. They're seeing that President Trump, with a plan, with a team, can come in and within the first 2 weeks can deliver more than what perhaps has been delivered for these people in the last 20 years.
I want to put this point to both of you, gentlemen. I'm hearing serious whiffs of a major newspaper at the weekend applying a heavy amount of pressure to both the Conservative Party and the Reform Party to do some sort of pact. Now, the most likely version, that might be a sort of Labour Party, Liberal Democrat non-aggression pact. Oh, no. Honestly, we're not doing a pact, but they just won't campaign in the same areas. Because with these scores on the doors, Aman, we've got a serious three-way split, which could upset the apple cart. So is that the right thing to do? Do you think that they should be standing aside for each other to make sure that the Labour Party is squeezed out?
Well, look at it this way. We already had that non-aggression pact between the Lib Dems and Labour at the last election. They didn't acknowledge it, but it was there. I saw it on the doorstep myself. But more than that, look, for a government to be so out of touch and out of favour so quickly and still so far ahead of the next planned election is quite remarkable. It's, I think, unprecedented. We were talking about it earlier. I don't think we've seen it in our lifetimes. But more than that, I think people are realising that this is a government which is not just driving out wealth creators, extinguishing opportunities for opportunity. We've seen the job losses coming up, but also it's look at where we stand in the world today. This is a government that is a sovereignty surrendering. This is a government that is Britain bashing. We've seen that with the Attorney General. He hates the British Empire and our legacy and our history. But also, more than that, this is a government that is playing internationalist, socialist politics, the politics of sixth form with the sixth biggest economy in the world. And we've seen the results so quickly.
Apart from that, you're a huge fan of the government. Chris, on a serious point, this kind of non-aggression pact, they both keep saying, Kemi Baden not notified, no deals, no chance, not on your Nelly. However, politics is a brutal business, and when reality bites, might they do some sort of backstage manoeuvring?
I don't think those two individuals can do it. I asked Kemi Badenoch this 2 weeks ago at a press conference. She said, Nigel Farage, from memory, wants to burn down the Tory party. Why would I do a deal with her? For his part, Nigel Farage is offended that Kemi Badenoch questioned those membership figures. Now they're up well above 200,000. So the issue of honesty and questioning Farage's honesty, he hates that because he tells the truth. I think those two can't work it out. There's speculation about whether a different leader for the Tory party might do it. Robert Jenrick or Suella Braverman could do a deal with Farage and unite the right. There's an article this weekend in the Spectator magazine read by a lot of Conservative types. In there, it's talking about how this might happen. And that's what I think has got the chatter starting about a merger between the Tories and Reform, despite the fact that they say it won't happen.
That's a piece by Katie Balls, just setting the hairs running. Quick final comment to you.
Martin, look, I've been on the other side of the equation, being a Conservative Party candidate, stood for election, all the rest of it. The Conservative Party, as it stands right now, faces the biggest problem it does, which is the matter of lack of trust. People on the doorstep simply do not trust the same party which couldn't do anything that is promising now on immigration for 14 years. And I've been on the other side. People were randomly thrown aside for people who were not wanting to do the thing by the British people, that is control immigration, secure borders.
Would you throw your hat in the ring or your turban in the ring to be with Reform? You've been a Conservative all your political life, but you look at these sort of metrics, would it tempt you?
Well, these are not just the metrics that would tempt me. What tempts me would be where a particular party stands on policy. What and how likely are they to deliver on it? Look,
I'll take that as a yes.
Well, the point is, I think, with Nigel and Reform right now, I think they're really chiming in very well with the British public. And you know what? As I said earlier, people are seeing what Trump has been able to do, and they will do it.
OK, very quick final word.
One thing, though, they've got 5 MPs. Yep. Who on earth is the welfare secretary? Who is the health secretary? Who's the foreign secretary? They couldn't run a government right now with experienced figures. Let's not forget that about Reform UK.
But the point that comes out of this poll, actually, interestingly, is the lack of political baggage is what people are saying they like, because they're not incumbent with the failures.
Unknown for this country.
And you know what, Chris? I would argue that we've seen both Labour and the Conservative Party with minister after minister. I mean, look at the churn of ministers that we had in the Conservatives for 14 years. I mean, how many people can point out to a particular thing that
Gentlemen are being whipped along and told in this 3-horse race we must move on.